Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Awakening Your Inner Genius. My name is Ken Pearson, and we are joined by Mr. Jim Porter over there, a 50-year student, Mr. John Boswell, ex-president of the University of Science and Philosophy, and our Chief Science Officer, Scott Vanderpool. And we are welcome you all. Thank you guys for being here. We're going to have a really good session tonight. It is going to be fun. We're going to unpack it all shortly here, but let's go ahead and get ourselves quiet and kind of settle down for a little minute, right? We've had a full day, and now let's try and unwind for a minute before we do some concentrating. We're going to do a little decentrating is what we talk about and through the home study course. And decentration is to unwind. So as we look at our beautiful ocean and feel the sound and touch into the waves as nature is omnipresent, which is the first stage of getting to the creator within. That's why we all enjoy the outdoors most. If we're tapping in, you can really connect to that source inside of you, that divine light. And so we're going to call it out here while we do a little meditation. So just sit back and relax and unwind. And again, desire is the way to get to that stillness in the mind. You can't think your way there. There's no pose, there's no action, and there's no form that will bring God out of you other than desire. That desire force is the key to awakening that light and connecting to it, and be cognizant of it while we're here right now. So let's go ahead and just settle back down, and if you can, just relax yourself a little bit and unwind. And I'm going to close my eyes like I usually do and just talk you through a little bit of a meditation that is in Unit 2. And it goes like this. The glory of thy anointing light descends upon me, and my soul quickeneth. Thy light is all around me. Thy light shines through me. Thy light encompasses me. I am dissolved in thy light. My light and thy light have become one. I'm immersed in my light. I am in thy light, knowing thy light, and I ask thee to be with me, so that I would not be myself alone. And in that sense, just think about that. That light is all around me. That light shines through me. That light encompasses me. And when I'm really one with God, I am dissolved in God's light. And that's how we become one, by desire. So the desire at this point is to unwind that thinking, sort of like winding up a clock spring or a toy. Just let it unwind. So instead of your thoughts getting shorter and faster, we're going to make them longer and longer. Lengthen the wave of your own thought. And we do this by desire. I have paralleled it to daydreaming. As a quick portal to get there. So we're going to take just about 30 seconds to a minute to just let yourself unwind and desire to be in that state of zero stillness. And just try and really tune into the beautiful rhythm of the wave. All right, let's come on back. We don't try and take too long. We don't want to lose anybody, but we are on Unit 11, Lesson 41, and we are going to start out with page number 781. If you can turn there and bring that up. And tonight is going to be a little tricky, seemingly, but we have Scott Vanderpool here, who's going to help us to decode some of the science stuff, along with Mr. Bonsall, Mr. Porter, and myself. So we're going to present this in the simplest form that we can for all of us. And so don't panic. And if it's a little complicated, we totally understand. It was that way for each and every one of us until you really just contemplate. That's such a key. It's not just reading the words and remembering them, but really contemplating what's said here. And John, would you like to read that first paragraph for us, please?
I certainly would. The purpose of the cube in nature. We have carefully described the purpose of the sphere in creating this curved universe of dynamic motion by dividing the static universe of no motion into light waves. These light waves are thus permitted to multiply the cold condition of space into heat by the aid of biconvex lenses and to divide the heat into cold by the aid of concave ones. The cube enables light waves to repeat themselves by the use of light mirrors of zero curvature. The tools which built creation are, therefore, light projecting lenses and mirror reflecting planes.
All right. Can you talk a little bit on that, please, John?
Well, the sphere of the cube, fire, water.
And you
Okay.
can bring up that sphere cube. I'm sorry, John. James, if you could bring that up. There's a sphere cube in there.
And the activity that takes place
Thank you.
between the sphere and the cube, we earlier last week and the week before, we got into the 9 lenses that make up spheres, and then how the zero curvature of the cube ties into that. So, but this is God. This is nature's building blocks. This is how it's done, and those are the
Hmm.
only 2 representatives that God uses, and then there is multiplicities of each.
Okay. Scott, would you like to share on that paragraph about that cube and what the cube represents to us and how that sphere is so important in
Sure.
terms of how it operates?
Yeah. So, Walter talked about a cubic wave field, and how he talked about how the wave, if you can understand the wave, then you can understand all creation. And for purposes of simplifying it, Russell usually just showed one wave. Sometimes he showed 2 adjacent to each other, but the idea is if you take one cube, those the there are planes of zero curvature, okay, which he called the still magnetic light, and within that cube is where all the motion takes place. Now the motion is all the actions of light that we see, and one wave cycle happens in one cube. You'll see the process of it starting at the inertial plane, and as you guys I'm sure have talked about on this channel, the spirals that start to form that are centripetal, that compress light to a smaller volume till it reaches the amplitude of the wave, and then it radiates and goes back to the beginning where it came from. So there is this cycle, and it happens, and the frequency of that cycle is different for different forms. It depends on if you're talking about the sun or the earth. That frequency is going to be a lot, I guess, slower than something like the the frequency is excuse me, is just different for different things. But the concept here is that is the same for everything in the universe. And so Russell is giving us the example of one wave, like in one cube.
Hmm.
So I think that's probably what we're going to be looking at today. Now this diagram that you have up on the screen there, so in the middle you see 1, 2, 3 planes that are, at 90 degrees to each other or orthogonal. And Russell, the way that he describes it is those are like the projector screens, and light will project out away from those inner screens and go out towards the corners of the cube.
James, can you do me a favor and bring up figure?
We don't see the light when it first
59,
starts.
and maybe that'll help you there, Scott. Figure 59, James, can you bring that up? Go ahead, Scott. I'm sorry. 59. There you go. Keep going. Keep going. There you go.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah, this is where he shows the inner 3 planes of zero curvature, right? And so, essentially, actually, there's another one. There should be rings. There should be another. Do you have another?
We have the wave, don't we, James? Do we have that wave picture? Picture of the wave?
It should look like, let's see. It should look exactly like this diagram, but instead of like a ball, there should be like circle rings. Do you have something? Do you have that diagram?
Well, while he's looking for it, if you don't mind me coming in here, Scott, is I want to come in, and we missed one word on these planes, guys, and it's a mirrored plane. There's your wave field there, Scott. Go ahead.
Let's see. All right, it's not actually the one I was thinking of. It's just I know that the previous diagram you showed, I know that from Atomic Suicide, and there's like a sister diagram to that diagram. Right. But I can still talk. We can go back to the other.
Okay, go ahead and go back to the beginning of that first image you had there, James, if you would. That would be figure number 55. Figure number 55. Is that what you're talking about, Scott? Where Jim's got a picture up there, Scott?
No, I have my copy of Atomic Suicide here, and I could actually kind of show you guys what I was talking about. So let's see. I don't know if you can see this, but this is the diagram that he had up there. But it's on the page right before that. There's this diagram. Let's see if you guys can see that.
Okay.
It's the inner planes, and Walter is showing these circles, these rings. Okay. So these rings are essentially the beginning. These rings are on the inertial plane of zero curvature. Okay. And so that's where the motion will start. And the motion will start and go in a spiral, centripetal spiral, and then will eventually, kind of like this, will spiral and follow a path towards the corner of the cube. And when you get to the corner of the cube, that's when you'll see this. Okay, so kind of keeping those diagrams in mind, the purpose of the cube controls, the cube, as Russell says, is essentially those planes of zero curvature. That's the still magnetic light. That is God. It is on the outside controlling, and it's also in the middle controlling all of the motion that's happening there. All that spiral motion that's happening is staying within that one cube. and it goes and it runs its cycle from the inertial plane, spiraling up to the amplitude of the wave, and then spiraling centrifugally, radiating, expanding, and going back to where it came from. So it runs that whole life cycle in that wave cycle, in that one cube. Now, that's kind of the diagrams that he showed, but we have to imagine that this is happening in multiple wave fields, because as soon as this action happens in one wave field, it is mirrored in every wave field.
There's the mirrors we were talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yes.
Great, Scott. Thank you.
All right. I hope
yeah, you're good. You're good, John. Don't worry about it. You were in. All right. So now that was a great explanation. Remember, this is our chief science guy, so he's going to be on the science side. So we're trying to make this as simple as possible, and that was a pretty simple explanation to a pretty complex idea, but also we can simplify.
Let's see. Is he frozen for you guys too? I think Ken, we lost Ken.
Yes.
Sorry about that. That was
He's back.
There we go. Okay. So if you can bring that diagram back up on 55, James, thank you very much. That started in the left-hand side. That is a sphere. And that sphere is in the center of that cube. And what it is think of every element as being the same, as everything being a sun, as Scott said. So think of that as a sun projecting light. And that light now starts projecting into that mirrored image that you see in that cube. And you see on the bottom right-hand corner, we don't want to get too technical. So let's look at the left-hand corner cube. And as Scott was talking about, you got those three planes that sit in the middle there, right? And that's your height, width, and depth. But in the center of that is that sphere. And that sphere is radiating light to mirrors. Those are all mirrored. Every one of those planes are mirrored. And so light is generated, and it generated in a curved manner. So this cube, as it forms, we've talked about it before. I got my little, if you can put me on full screen there, James, real quick. I got my little cross here, right? And we've done this before and shown this before, but this is the way that in God's world, if you were, would be to form that cube would almost be to start there, right? With a single plane. And then we get a second plane, and then we get a third plane, and then we get a fourth plane, and a fifth plane, and the sixth plane. And then, as you can see, it's a cross. And the interesting thing about these planes, as they fold on each other, they become a cube. And thus, you see what we're talking about now. And so we're talking about as a generation of first idea, the first beginning of matter. This is how matter is joined. So these are all mirrored, and they come together to form that cube. Then in the center of that cube, remember those three other planes are centered by a hot sphere, a sun, if you will, that's radiating light. And that light.
Hold on, Ken. I want to make one correction there. Mm-hmm. Actually, in the center, it would actually be darkness. That's where, like, when the matter starts to form, it's very spread out. It's actually like rings. Mm-hmm. And as it builds up, it will build towards the corner of the cube, and the corner of the cube is where we actually see the sun or the hot sphere. So sometimes people make that mistake thinking that the sphere is in the center of the cube, but at least in these diagrams, he's showing the center as a whole. The center of the sphere as a whole, and the corner of the cubes is where the spheres will form.
Okay, let's go back to image 59 just to double check that in terms of what we're showing, Scott, real quick.
And let me say one last thing, because this is also kind of confusing, because he also has a diagram where he shows the corner of the cube, and so, but he does it in a way so that looks like the center of the cube. Right. So it is a little complex, but yeah, go ahead.
We don't want to get too technical. That's what we're going to try and stay with. Let's go to image 59 there, James. We're going to go back to that.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh,
so
and
that
that's the
looks
one I
like
was
a
talking.
sphere.
That right there.
Yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
That would be at the corner. That right there would be at the corner of the cube. That is, he's actually showing, when he shows one cube, there's actually another cube right next to it and another one right next to it. It's so eight cubes would be all next to each other. And that what he's showing right there is the corner where 8 cubes come together. He calls that man's, what did he say?
Well, let's try not reference what we don't have in the lesson, Scott. I don't want to go too far off into other books
I'm
and holding
sorry.
books up. It's okay. It's okay. This is just trying to simplify it. John, you want to give us a little run on that, and then we'll go to James and see what they got to say, and then we'll come back to Scott.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we need to beat it to death there. I think Scott's done a wonderful job of laying it out. Yeah, and
he does say, this is the same diagram that you're showing. I don't know if it has this in Atomic Suicide. He does label it, and he says this is man's end of the cosmic bridge where motion reaches maximum.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you have that wave in your right on the right page there, right?
Yes.
Yes. Centripetal and centrifugal wave.
Yes, and so we can see this cube, how it's in the center. It's rings that start the spiral, and they spiral up centripetally till they reach the corner, and that would be man's end. He calls this side God's end, because on the previous page, this is God's end, where it's a hole, and it's actually, he shows a little circle, but like it's darkness. What is he says? It's God's end of the cosmic bridge, where motion begins its projection into space to simulate mind idea. So these are the projection planes, those 3 planes in the middle, which he calls God's end, and then this is man's end, which would be in the corner. He's showing this as if it was at the corner, but it looks like it's in the center. So that's one of the confusing things, because if you first saw this diagram, you would think, hey, that's in the middle of the cube. But in Atomic Suicide, he has all 3 of these diagrams, page after page to describe that.
All right, Scott. Thank you. 783, yeah. James, if you would, that first paragraph there. And if you could just, John, read that first sentence there. Jim, I'm sorry. Could you read that first sentence there and tell us a little bit about what that means?
Power projection means the wireless transmission of power generated from anywhere to wherever one wishes to project it. Shall I go on? Continue?
I think that's just a little highlighted there. So is that a thought there? Is that present a thought? Or you go ahead if you want to continue. That's fine.
Well, that's the everything that is of everything else that is explanation.
Okay.
This power is of utmost value to science because it enables it to build missiles, with which it can strike any designated section of another country, and also to build anti-missiles which find and destroy missiles sent here from other countries. So they're just showing that when you understand the concentrative radiative principle and how it works, you understand that radar is radiating outward to a point, and then reflecting back to the point from which it came from, which is true of all embodied things. All body things are radiating outward from stillness to a point of maximum compression at carbon and back again to stillness. And what Scott's talking about is those 8 corners of each cube multiplied by all the connecting cubes is what creates this beautiful illusion that we're living in. But the correct statement is illusion, because when you look at that reflected union, we always talk about the little mirrored box. When you fold that box up and you look at the reflected multiplicity inside, you know it does not exist. It's an illusion. There is no multiplicity in there, and we're not living in a multiply universe. We believe we are because we're focusing on it from limited range understanding, sense range. We have a limited sense range that prevents us from seeing the whole 360-degree picture and allows us to experience all that we experience. But the mystic knows, and Scott, through his science, knows that now what we are doing is we're coming to the stage of knowing this is an illusion. Once you know that it's an illusion from one source, which is all of us, then you know how to manipulate the illusion and create what you're here to do, manifest divinity.
All righty,
Well
let's go
said.
back
Well
to that
said.
paragraph. Oh, Scott, you got something you want to say?
Oh no, I just said well said. That was that
Okay.
gave me some goosebumps there.
Okay, go to 783 then. We'll go back to that paragraph if you would, James, please. And John, you want to read the highlighted yellow part, or we could just stare at Jim for a while?
You don't need to do that.
Because, you know, he's looking pretty handsome tonight. I thought we were going to have the same shirt on, Jim.
No, this is actually a different one from one of our events.
I'm
Still
glad we're
roughly.
all dressed up tonight. We look like just a stellar crew here in our
Oh
t-shirts.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's great,
We are.
great shirts.
Okay, what would Doc and Russell Leo say? All right, Jim, John, can you read the highlighted yellow part there for us, please?
Yes, I can. Power could be projected from one power plant to another without the necessity of using hundreds of thousands of wire transmission cables. Nature does not use wires to maintain that tremendous cosmic intercommunication system which links every creating thing to every other creating thing.
Stop
This
there.
name chart.
You want to
Okay.
share on that? Tell us what that means, please.
Well, I believe there was a gentleman at the turn of the 20th century by the name of Nikola Tesla. And I believe he was trying to accomplish that particular project right there. And so, man, it's unfortunate that he has to use some of this technology for not peacetime. Wouldn't it be a wonderful day in human relations when we can concentrate this technology on the benefit of humanity rather than the destruction of it?
Yes, definitely.
Let's go back to that paragraph, and you can finish that paragraph up, John, if you would.
All righty. There you see Jim Porter.
Yep, we sure do. Thank you for sharing that paragraph, John. No, oh, yeah, that's right. Go ahead and read.
All right. This enables us to say that there are no two separate or separable things in all the universe. There is but one. It thus demonstrates the oneness of all things and creatures in this universe. So basically, for me, in dissecting that, it's just that there's only one creator. There's a particular way in which God creates things. There's a particular way into which God communicates and intercommunicates with all things. It's a simple process. And but some of us that are learning it for the first time, you know, you got to just sit back a little bit. It's like getting smacked in the forehead, you know, you're like, whew, wait a minute now. Okay.
Yeah.
You got to meditate on it a little while. And
we're definitely used to, you know, people might not even realize, but we already are doing wireless things, you know, that we're familiar with, like radio. And, you know, it's essentially, you know, these waves radiate out and then get recompressed back to a level that then we can hear them again. You know, that's kind of like, you know, what a transmitter and receiver do.
I'll tell you what, Scott, can you read that next paragraph?
And
that's exactly what you're talking about. And
sure.
then Scott can explain that. Can you bring that up real quick, James? The next paragraph is just a shorty, and Scott can go into the explaining further about what we're talking about. There's still another right from there, Scott.
Let's see. Still another peacetime usage is the ability to control the landing places of astronauts in space satellites and to make use of balloon-like satellites for telephone projection to distant countries and even to automobiles on their roads.
There you go.
Right. All of this is made possible because science has learned to control gravity
Mm.
to quite a considerable extent, even though it is not aware that it has done so. Um, we mentioned this in a prior lesson when speaking of the eminent scientist who said he believed it would be possible someday to attain knowledge on how to control gravity. So, yeah, we have discovered, and yes, thanks to Nikola Tesla, one of the great scientists, and other scientists as well. But we're already sending waves out and receiving waves like across the globe and out into space, all the way up to satellites and then back down to Earth. So we have an amazing. We've already done a lot, but with Walter's technology and our understanding of the wave, we could also transmit power. Like right now we're not transmitting power, but we will be able to do that once the more we learn how nature works. And Russell has put all of this down in books, so it's really amazing.
Ken, it's
Mhm.
interesting. Here, the home study course was written in 51, and they're talking about um, cell phones, and like Scott said, satellites and other
Mhm.
intercommunication things. So here we are, right? Let's see,
Yep.
50, 60, almost 70 years later,
75.
and what they were talking about has come to fruition, and it is here. So hats off, kudos to man for discovering this and trying to make people's lives better and so on. So technology is a wonderful thing. I love technology.
Yeah. Even
I
for us
think it
to
really
have this Zoom meeting that we're, or I'm sorry, this
Yes.
meeting where we're live from across the
Yeah.
different parts of the country and we can communicate instantaneously like this. It's wonderful.
It
Yeah,
is.
I think it really validates kind of these lessons, what is being taught here on this panel, and why this home study course is being taught. Is that these are coming from Dr. Russell and Lao Russell were very advanced for their time, passing a message. This is a part of the message. So again, don't let science intimidate you. I encourage you to just, as John said, just keep soaking it in, and whatever you can take it with you. I mean, as was just explained, the cell phone, your car phone. And so you realize that's all wireless technology. Well, in 1951, the Russells had calculated this and foreseen this. And you would go back to Dr. Russell, probably back to 1921, when he had his illumination, where he was able to comprehend and understand the science and how they tapped into the secrets of the universe, which is in that wonderful book called The Man Who Tapped Secrets of the Universe. So, one thing that I always like to say too is that through these lessons that I've learned is each and every one of us, if I was to ask you, where is the center of your universe that you live in? John's in a body, Jim's in a body, Scott's in a body. Where's the center of your universe? Right? How are we all one? Well, if you think about it, the center of the universe is within each human being. It's not outside of you. It's not on top of your head, right? The center of your universe radiates from the inside out, just like it's an inside job. So everybody is the center of their own universe, and therefore we all have a different perspective. If you stuck a cow out in the field and you took 10 people and said, look at that cow for 10 minutes, and then take the cow away and then have everybody describe what they saw in that cow, what that cow looked like, you'd have 10 different descriptions, wouldn't you? So what
Yeah.
makes us one is the same thing that makes us individuals, is that individual journey. And so, last night I was talking to Kimberly about it, about like a radar. Think of a radar and how it sweeps, right? And that's what we're talking about, wireless technology. And a radar sweeping for anything that comes in that field, sends a reflection back to the receiver of that radar as it sends out a signal. And if anything blocks it or interrupts it, then you get a bleep, right? And as we live this life we're living on, but the reality of it is you are the center of your own radar, and everything in that field in your life is the things that you've brought in, that you've thought about, every thought, feeling, and action is in that radar spectrum that represents the countenance within, the spirit within you. So in that same sense, we're taking science now and we're helping you to see a little bit how that correlates to your own human experience. And basically, every human being has its own wave cube field. Am I correct, Scott?
Yes,
John?
yeah, that's right. Now, I would take it one step further just to this was something that blew my mind that Russell described, and it's that that still center of our cubic wave field. It is God, and therefore it is actually the same point in all of it point, which blew my mind. That was what he described all. Just one other thing you said about radar. Walter's so ahead of his time, and I think it's in Atomic Suicide. He was talking about radar and saying they're only using one quadrant. If they would use all four, he was like, that's why they have to spin their radar around. He was like, if
It's
they just
actually in
used
this
all four
lesson,
quadrants,
Scott. We're coming there. It's in this lesson.
oh, it is. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, I'm
yeah.
jumping ahead.
That's okay. It's
Okay,
okay.
then
There goes
I'll just be
Johnny. Look
quiet
at
now.
Johnny's got. There, Scott, can you tell
Oh, there
John,
it
you want
is.
to tell us what you got, or Scott, you want to tell us what John's got in his hand there?
That's beautiful. So right, so that is the physical version of what we were just seeing the diagram. You've got the three planes of zero curvature inside the projection planes. Yeah,
Yep.
those would be the planes that the rings would be on.
Mirrored
And
projection.
then the cube on the outside is the six planes of zero curvature that would be like, as he calls it, like the cinema screen, if you will, that this projection is going to. And that's where we see the
Sort of like a
illusion.
negative,
That's where
right, Scott? Could you parallel that to like a negative that light projects through it to send images and intercommunicate with everything else? Is that correct?
Yeah, kind of like. Well, I like his. I used to work in a movie theater, and so I got to go up into the projectionist booth where you can see the film, and this film is coming down, but there's this bright light, the projector light that's projecting light out into the movie theater onto the screen. Well, those little small, on a film, for people who don't know, it's just made up of still pictures. But because the pictures are running by the light, and it's giving every frame so many frames per second, I think 24 frames per second or something like that.
Correct.
That's what gives it the illusion of that the pictures are moving. So we call it the moving pictures, right? And so Russell, I like his analogy that it's like we are the projection that comes from that center three planes is like a movie projector. The light projects out onto the screen of a three-dimensional screen, though. It's a three-dimensional movie instead of a two-dimensional movie that we're living in. And it's an illusion, just like the motion picture illusion, that those still pictures are moving, but they're not really moving, are they? Right? They're just an illusion of motion.
I think that should be our next T-shirt, Ken. Life is an illusion.
That's it. It's in the movie. It's only two-dimensional. Scott's talking about, but God does it with three dimensions. So we're paralleling the two-dimension. And actually, there's a diagram in that we're coming up to that will show that the block diagram. So there's a one-dimension, two-dimension, and three dimensions. So let's go ahead and go on down to the bottom of 783. And Jim, would you like to read that?
Sure.
And we're going to need image number 56, if you would, Joey.
You want what's in yellow? Or the whole thing?
No. Yeah, you know what? Go ahead and finish that up since we were talking about it. Yes.
What am I finishing up? The yellow?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Making of gravity-powered reactor, or pardon me, making of a gravity-powered reactor, which would eliminate the use of atomic energy and give unlimited heat to almost no expense by using generated surplus and therefore getting generous power without the use of current from a power plant. Now, Dr. Russell, as we students know, did that with his windings that he has, the two little boxes.
James, do you have those coils we had in that prior lesson that Jim, maybe Jim can explain that from there. Those coils, remember those coils? They kind of went down. They were kind of conal coils with wires around them. If you can find that, bring that up. Go ahead, James.
So and that's the inward winding that Scott and the rest of us talk about. That's the in breath. That's the from stillness to compression to maximum point of rest and back out to expansion. That's all that's happening, no matter what body you're looking at, whether it's a solar system, a galaxy, a sun, or a corpuscular unit of light, as I like to say. That's all that you're witnessing. They're going through those 9 stages of compression, expansion. That's all just happening. The illusion is the variance in time. Where I pointed out before, a corpuscular unit of light, 186,400 times a second, it goes through the cycle. Miniature sun being born, reaching point of maximum compression, and expanding out. Our suns, our stars do exactly the same thing. They're simply a much slower pace. Time, the illusion. And the grand illusion of time is all of this. It's wonderful.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and go over to page 784, and we'll carry it over from the bottom there, if you would. 783, start at the bottom there. Scott, you want to read that? 783, last paragraph, and then we'll carry that over. And James, if you could bring up that imaging once he gets over to that page, please. Go ahead, Scott.
What's he here with, Scott?
Yes, number 56, Joey. Okay, John, why don't you go ahead and do that? I think Scott's frozen up there.
Okay. We herewith print another diagram, figure 56, which analyzes the different sections of the cube by taking it apart. The sections marked B and double B show how the cube is divided into 6 geometric forms known as tetrahedrons.
Why don't you share from there, please, John? And you got your diagram there, if you can see that.
Yes. So look at those pyramids, 4 of them facing each other.
Can you zoom in again back into that? Thank you, guys. Thanks, James.
And actually, if you'll look closer to the BB, you'll see that it is 6 of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And further on in the paragraph, you'll see how they tie in. Mm-hmm. And how these are spinning. All right, so we'll wait until we get to that point before we give them a.
All right, let's go ahead and finish that paragraph up. If you could scroll up, please, James. Oh, go ahead, John. Finish that paragraph up.
All righty. Known as tetrahedrons, which control the static universe of stillness, and the sections marked D and double D show it divided into 6 cones, which control the curved universe of motion by revolving spirally within the static cube.
Let's take that image and just bring it up a little bit, James, so we can see what they're talking about there. And go ahead, John.
So if we take the mechanics, like what Scott beautifully gave us earlier, the mechanics of the sphere and the cube, and now we take the cube and we add tetrahedrons to it, and then the conical spinning of these tetrahedrons is like, whoa, no, wait a minute here.
Right. How do they start spinning?
This is going to be simple.
Yeah, man. How do you cut those edges off?
Whew. My goodness. But, and what's beautiful is, then there's another, there's another photograph that our example that the Russells uses, and they show you all the different sides to geometry, and all of those take place after carbon, and that's an interesting point that we'll come back to. All right, so
go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were done.
Scott, if you want to. If you have a more in-depth explanation of the tetrahedrons and how they actually work, I'll leave that up to you, or Ken, if you want Scott to handle that. Or
I think Scott's frozen again.
He's froze up, man. We put him.
But I will go ahead and note here, as you can read there in the bottom of this graph here, the imaging. It says the cube and the sphere are the sole working tools of creation, and that it takes a long time. There's all kinds, as they show you in the left-hand picture, all kinds of fractals as you get tetrahedrons, tetrahydrals. You got, you know, the geometry and shapes, which I actually have a few images here, which I can show you. And this is your tetrahedron right here, right? That's a tetrahedron. And this is your conical sphere. So this is where this evolves into this and starts spinning. So this would replace this. And then, as Scott was talking about, this is where centripetal and centrifugal force would then take over and start rotating. This would, if I can hold it, this would rotate. This will rotate, right? And that's what we're talking about, is that spinning vortex. And as Jim said last week very eloquently, you would see 4 double rings down inside there, which is what we talk about, the wave boundary field. So those are the waves that are starting to form and create matter until they reach, as we talk about, that 90-degree amplitude. 90-degree amplitude is this point, right? So you think of a vertical line is 90 degrees, and that's what we're talking about. So in terms of that, though, what the most important thing for me is that I really look fascinated with being an unacademically educated guy like I am. I ain't educated, but you know what I mean? But I have come to learn that there's only 2 shapes, and everything's a derivative of that, and that's the cube and the sphere. And that is about as simple as you can get into all the geometry and fractal, but those are all effects. It's the main working tools, as we've been talking about, is the cube and the sphere. So that, to me, I found fascinating and something of science. And James, can you pull up image 58 and just to show you all the variables that we have? And I think you have an old game I used to play when I was a kid, a drawing game that goes with that image on image 58. Next one, there you go. And then we have a little spiral set we had next to that on one image Kimberly sent.
Yeah.
There it is. So do you guys ever remember playing that game? So
Absolutely.
All right, Jim, why don't you talk us through that a little bit about what we're looking at?
Well, it's the interaction of the circles that create the illusion of complexity. But if you just look at that, all that seeming complexity is crisscrossed by straight lines, reflective lines of stillness. So no matter how many circles you begin to make, eventually as those circles cross over each other, you're going to see those straight lines of static stillness formed, because that's what they were born from. And that's what they are trying to get back to. Can we pull up another thing for a second? I just want to do a little clarification here.
Is it in the lesson?
It's in the lesson. It's page 782.
782. Well, what's the image number, Jim?
Number 55.
Okay, gotcha. The first image there, James, if you would, 55.
Now I'm going to get back into Genesis. I know I drive some people crazy with this, but I understand after studying the Russell course for decades, when I go back and read the Bible, I realize that most of the books of the Bible, especially the Old Testament early books, are based on universal law. Now here it is in Genesis. In the beginning, God. That's that dot. That's stillness. That's that all presence. In the beginning, God. And then God created Adam. If you'll notice, Adam is in the garden. He only can communicate with the divine source directly because both are equal and opposite planes. There's no curvature at this point. Then Adam desires to have company. In his desire to have company, Eve is born out of his side at a 90-degree angle from his rib. Feminine expression. With the feminine, following the feminine expression, you go to the other one. So it's Adam and Eve. God says, go forth and multiply. That's the third one. That's multiplication of three. And that's a three-dimensional universe we live in. And that's unlimited embodiment through desire and thought. So when you start to grasp the science that is before you from the Russells, you can go back to previous written things throughout history, and you'll start to see these mystics who couldn't explain these things to man at that point in his evolution did explain them. They're in their stories and they're in their parables. And Genesis is full of incredible scientific knowledge.
John, would you like to share on that imaging?
Well, I think we pretty much covered that in detail earlier, didn't we? Ken, I wanted to say I wanted you to sit up straight so that we could see your shirt, because that is as about a good an example of the tetrahedrons, the cube, the wave, and its actual motion and its sequence. I mean, that right there is beautiful.
Which part? My belly, my six pack. Oh, I was.
Now, not your six pack. I don't know. I would
Oh,
call that a six
all right.
pack,
Just wondering. Just wondering.
packed with something. But
So it's a 2-pack.
yeah, but that sequence, that drawing right there, just it shows you the rings. It shows you going to the corners. It shows you the tetrahedrons, the pyramids, and the spirals. So that
And I,
diagram right there, and that was a later diagram, if I'm not mistaken, by Doc.
yeah.
And that's why that's not in the home study course. That was later on, I think.
I think I see a sphere in the middle there. Am I incorrect there? Because I think that's where zero gravity is, right?
It covers the gap. That's a beautiful. There, he's back. I was getting.
I'm
hoping
back.
we-
Sorry about that, guys.
It happens, Scott. We've all been kicked out. All of us.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, Scott, we already went to a break and came back, and we're already on unit 12
Okay.
already.
Wow.
Speaking of which, now that Scott's back, you know what? We're going to have to take a break. No, I was kidding. It's been 45, 50 minutes, so we did pass. So actually, we do need to take a break. And then, Scott, you're back now with us. You're good?
I
You look
hope
good
so.
now. Yeah,
Yes.
the imaging is a lot cleaner now. It was a little snowy before. So whatever you did actually helped. Okay, so we're going to take 3 minutes. Relax. You'll hear some music, unwind. Sorry, that was a lot. We got caught up. I went a little bit past the break, so I do apologize. That's I would blame. I'm going to blame John Bonzel for that, just because he's so appealing that I just couldn't stop looking at him. So here we go.
Thank you, Kit.
All right, Scott, you with us? Okay. We need to unmute people, but that's all right. Jim, you're muted. Or John, I'm sorry, you're muted. Jim. Okay, let's go ahead and go until Scott catches up here. Let's read figure 56, the print there. Can we bring that image back up and we'll just read the print there? James, if you would, figure 56 would be the figure we're looking for. We're just going to read the print below the imaging. And if you could zoom in on that bottom part there, just below the thing that says figure 56, this diagram. Can you read that, John?
I believe so.
All right.
This diagram illustrates the manner in which the cube controls the curved universe of motion from its static condition. Within its tetrahedrons, its spirals revolve as cones in two of them, while in the central four, the spirals resolve within one plane to create the gravity fields, which are known as magnetic fields.
Okay.
So if we can just kind of bring that, that's it, man. So, that picture A is interesting because you can like see the tetrahedrons in white as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about the single plane. I guess we're going to say that is the center one there.
Mm-hmm.
And so how God does this, it is amazing. And to be able to try to comprehend this, then to see this all in motion. That's one of the challenges that I've had all these years, is to try to see this sequence, slowed down and try to envision it all as one unit happening. And are those tetrahedrons spinning at the speed of light, or are they just spinning at a certain speed, and those kind of things. So, but the building blocks, just like you had that little paper cube, Ken.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the building blocks that God uses and how he projects things. Yep, there you go. Now, isn't that interesting, though, that the K seems to be facing outward more than any other letter, Ken?
Yeah. No pun intended. No pun intended.
I know, man.
No problem. You know who I am, don't you?
And that's how you spell cube, isn't it, with a K?
Yeah, that's how I spell it. You know what's great, though, John, is what I really love is we were talking about the diagram. And if you look at it from right to left and then right to left again, you're seeing the progression of what we're talking about. So you can see B there, the tetrahedrons. Now you go down to C and you see how that when they're talking about the spirals start to turn into spheres. And then you go to the right side and you see the conal shapes. Now, in those cones, imagine those as spinning, right? And those are almost vacuous. Those are in the center of them is a steel shaft. Even it's gravity. And thus gravity is formed on that center line in BB. Those lines right there. That's how gravity is formed, is through that spinning motion that you're seeing in D. So can we scroll down a little bit, please, James? And then we will let's see. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead, John. Let's go ahead and go to 785 right there and talk a little bit about magnetism now and see what that means. So, Jim, would you like to read that?
Starting with but.
If that's what you like to do.
Okay. Well, remember they just mentioned upward that you've got two radiating inward fields toward density and incandescence.
I'll tell you what, if you'd like to go back to the imaging and go from there, we can do that. Go ahead and go back to that. There you go. Just scroll up a little bit. There you go. Up right there. Study figure 56. Go from there, Jim, if you'd like.
So in D, he's pointing out that you've got two inward radiating fields generating inward toward incandescence. And there's generating inward fields, and there's 4 radiating outward magnetic fields to offset it. Those fields are what he's about to talk about down here. So I'll read the whole thing.
Okay.
So, yeah, hang on a second. Study this figure 56 with us as we proceed. The closing spirals, these generate energy from the cold of space to heat it through compressing invisible light into visible light by thrusting inward from without. Occupy just 2 tetrahedrons, occupy just 2 of them in each cube. But the radiating spirals, these revolve in one centering plane on the equators of the suns thus produced, revolve within the other 4 tetrahedron, and create the gravity fields, which science calls magnetic fields.
Okay, so let's go back to that image, Jim, if you want to describe that a little bit more. If you could just scroll up there a little bit, James, please. Thank you.
I was going to throw that back to Scott and
Scott, you there? Okay.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. We got you now.
All right, thank you. So yeah, I think what Russell is talking about here is the cones. Like you can see first you see the tetrahedrons, but then you see the cones. You know, so we can imagine the cones as spiraling. Right. And so the reason he says it only happened.
Scott, we're getting bits and pieces of you, bud.
Is because he's always talking about 2
Hey, Scott.
cones.
Scott, can you hear me? Hi, Scott. Okay, we're gonna have to just
2 spirals that things. Okay, sorry guys.
It's all right. You're breaking up really bad. So none of that was coherent. None of it was coherent. So I don't, we will get this fixed because you do want to hear what Scott has to say. Just wanted to that was really choppy and not comprehensible. So he didn't say something that made sense. I'll guarantee you that, but let's see, keep trying and we'll go forward now. Scott, can we get you? Are you back in now?
Let's see.
Okay.
I can hear you guys fine, but can you hear me okay?
Got you
right
now.
Yep.
Got you
okay.
now.
Okay, so I was just saying Russell's describing how 2 of the cones are the spirals, the centripetal spirals. And so they're coming together. And where they meet in the
All right, Scott, it's not
middle.
working. Scott, can you hear me?
That's where a sun likes to wait. So I hear you fine. Let's see. I can try logging out again one more time.
Just try. Yeah, would you? Sorry, it was just really choppy. Really, you just can't. We can't quite comprehend what you're saying. All right, so Scott will be back. In the meantime, we will go over to 785, if you would, James, please. Por favor, scroll down. And why don't we go right to the bottom there, that bottom paragraph on 785. And can you read that highlighted part there for us, John, please?
Yes, I can. Now we come to a vitally important fact. The cube of 6 flat faces alone can crystallize in the forms of the cube and its intersections. They represent the static universe. Conical surfaces cannot crystallize in their forms because they represent the transient, curved, and ever changing universe of motion. And then that black circle there, isn't that funny? Scott must have talked to Kim and Kimberly earlier because his shirt matches that.
Yep.
There it is.
No.
Universal mathematics.
I'll tell you
telling
what,
you, man.
Scott, I would love to hear an explanation. If you could scroll up, James, just to that decimal paragraph where you saw the numbers. Next pair, one more, right? That paragraph right there. Now, I guess you're going to have to, yeah, right from there.
Yes.
So
I
I
don't
think
know.
you need the prior paragraph
guess
too
not.
there, Scott, don't you? To get, yeah. Okay. Now we refer. Go ahead. If you could talk us through
What's-
that, Scott.
Let's see. Sorry, I dropped out and came back in, so I didn't really hear. Is it this paragraph that's on the
Yes,
screen
yes,
now?
please,
Let's see.
please, yes. Start from now. We now refer.
We now refer you to the cube marked A. Note that it is bounded by its 6 planes and intersected by 3 planes, all at right angles, as marked 1, 2. Shows the one cube divided into 8, and therein lies the mathematical basis of pressures.
Hold on one second, Scott.
In
Let's show that
nature.
image real quick just so we can kind of correlate that. James, can you scroll up a little bit?
Falling
Just show the image of that.
Bodies
One second. So
multiply
there's
the power of compression.
okay. Can you read it? Can you still see, Scott, or no? Right. Okay. So this is A. Can you explain? That's kind of what he's talking about. That 8. When you talked about one cube becomes 8. Can you explain that a little bit to us? I think that's what they were just referring to. All right, our chief science guy is having wireless problems.
He's not
Yeah,
wired
yeah.
in.
He's
like,
We gotta
Oh,
wire you
man,
in,
I'm
Scott.
sorry.
Man, we gotta plug you in, baby.
I know. I never have these problems. I don't know what's happening today. So,
Oh,
and
okay.
I
So
haven't done
anyway,
anything
Ken,
different.
the three planes, we'll call them inner planes. And if you'll see the intersecting points, you can see how we get the 8 cubes.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
All
so
right.
let's go back to that paragraph now, James, if you would scroll down and come back into the 8 cubes. We're going from the 8 cubes to this paragraph, right? So
Yep,
one
one
cube divided into
cube,
8,
eight.
and go ahead, John.
And therein lies the mathematical basis of pressures in nature. Falling bodies multiply the power of compression 8 times that which they were when they began falling. This is known in mathematics as the cube in the inverse ratio. For rising bodies, it is known as the cube in direct ratio. So pretty simple. Let's substitute compression and expansion here, but in those sequences, right? So we're basically compressing, which is the inverse ratio, and the expansion or rising bodies is the cube in direct ratio.
Can we go up and you describe that with the conicals? Because I think the cones do that, right? That one there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
So can you explain that a little bit to us, Scott? You there?
I hope I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. And sorry, what did you want me to explain?
The right-hand corner one, the conicals, and how the 2 create centripetally and the 4 create centrifugally.
Right. Okay. So if you imagine 2, so you notice how he is showing 4 of the cones, like in the big picture, but then in the smaller picture, he's got like all 6 of them. So
DD.
right. So if you imagine the the two cones that are not shown in D, those would be the cones that would be spirally coming together. And when they meet in the middle and create the sun, then there's going to be a radiation out the equator, and that would be those four cones that are shown. Um, because in this case, the equator would be kind of on the same plane as like your computer screen that you're looking at. Like um, that would be the equator, because the cones are, the two that are not shown are the centripetal cones. So that would be like the north and south pole of, say, like, the Earth. And the equator would be like the equator of the Earth would be on the plane of, like, the flat plane of like how you're looking at your screen. And that's why all four of those cones are in that plane of like the screen of your computer. That would be the radiating portion, which would be radiating out of the equator of the sun or the planet. I hope that makes sense.
Well, if you could turn, like if you could take D, and if you could just turn it 90 degrees, which would be the equator, so you have the two compressing ones, and then they are being projected out on that single plane, on that equatorial plane. And it's again, these are the tools. We talked about that, I think, a couple of weeks ago. Ken, remember we said that God has a few tools in his tool belt as well?
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing a few more here, the cube and the sphere, and the multiplicity of them, outward and inward. So without trying to get too far ahead of our audience. So if they can just envision an equatorial plane, right? And then those four spiral cones on that one plane, and then you have, let's just say, a North Pole and a South Pole pushing in from the bottom and the top, and then projecting out on that single plane. Is that pretty close, Scott?
Yep, that's right. You got it. Yeah, it's just hard to kind of show in this. It is really, I have to give Walter Russell a lot of credit, because he has made such amazing diagrams. He's such a great artist, because this is very difficult to kind of, picture in your mind. And he has these great diagrams. And, I do think that this is one of the points where more diagrams are needed. He's showing one cube, but I've always thought it would be great if we could maybe show multiple cubes and kind of how the light kind of goes in between all of them. That's actually a project I think I probably want to work on, because it's
we have some more images in here. James, you want to scroll through some of those images, see if we can find something by chance? We do have some more imaging. Let's go see what we got. Not that one. Keep going.
I say this, I know, just from, when I was in the chief science officer position and I was able to see some of his works from the archive, I know there is one set of diagrams where he showed it in multiple wave fields. Now, the USP hasn't released that publicly yet. But
does this help you, Scott? You weren't on when I had this shirt on. Does this shirt help you at all?
Yeah, actually. Yes, this shirt, he's showing multiple cubic wave fields and how the light travels in its life cycle of the wave. Yeah, it's a great diagram. And let's see, so the way this would relate to what we were just talking about, you can see how there are two cones that kind of meet. And on the shirt they meet, and then there's a big circle where they meet. yes, right there. And so that plane, that would be the equatorial plane of the sun that was created there, and right up there, yeah, right there, and that is, so that would be the plane that those four cones, when we were talking about the four cones, they would be in that plane. Okay. um and that's the radiative uh portion. The cones are the gravitative portion, that are the centripetal, spiraling, bringing things together, until we see it as a sun.
That
Yeah.
cone there,
Yep,
right?
that one there, and the cone in the next wave field adjacent to it, the those two cone,
That one there,
yes, that one,
correct?
exactly. So those two cones are the cones that meet. And as he was talking about in the other diagram, he said, he said the centripetal portion is only in two cones. And
Yep.
so that's what he was talking about. Those two cones that meet together are the centripetal portion. And then the radiative or your centrifugal portion is at the equator of the sun that was created there.
And that's those other four cones, correct, Scott?
Right. Exactly.
So
And
two
this,
cones centripetal and two cones centrifugal.
that's right. That's
Four
right.
cones, excuse me, four cones centrifugal.
Right. Yep. And
Okay.
that picture of the wave cycle there is really fantastic. And it's,
Yeah.
it's one of the few times that he shows how light travels through multiple cubic wave fields. And you can see it's actually like spiraling, through all the wave fields. And it's, repeating, because of the mirror. um, the planes of zero curvatures act like mirrors. And so
Those are the
all of
square.
these,
That would be the
yeah,
squares referred to, yeah.
that's right. That's right. And even in this, he does show like some of the tetrahedron. Uh, it's just kind of different ways to kind of chop up the cube for your understanding of what's going on. But yeah, that diagram is fantastic, and it shows the complete wave cycle through multiple cubic wave fields. And because, as he described, when something happens in one place, it happens everywhere. So, it's that
So
radar
this cube
principle,
here, Scott, is
that
cut in
light.
half, right? That's
What's
like
that?
you said, that's kind of a cube cut in half there, right? Showing what the half of the
Yeah.
cube there,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, exactly. And he's trying to show kind of these different, aspects of the wave. There's like a red line that's kind of spiraling through there, and a blue line. And he goes
Mhm.
down at the bottom, and he shows how, that red and blue is the, anode to cathode, and back to cathode, this endless cycle that it just keeps going. But that is the cycle of the wave. And it just depends on whatever piece of matter we're talking about. It's going to be the same cycle, but the dimensions will be different, like the size or the frequency, or the time it takes to complete the cycle. All of these dimensions, and Russell has 18 dimensions of motion. All of
Mhm.
these dimensions are what give things their characteristics. What makes, something be silver versus what makes something be like, I don't know, water or something else. It's just these different dimensions. And so,
So where would the
of the cycle. So
can you point
it's
out where the four poles would be, Scott? The four poles that he refers to?
I did not. I think I must have been out of the conversation when you guys read that, but I'm not sure which four poles you're referring to.
I'm not sure, Ken, if that photo get there would allow us to do that.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. All right. So we do get it on that first image, though. When we see those, you go back to image 55, we get the four poles there, don't we? Image 55. One more back. There we go. Are those the 4 poles there?
Um, I'm not sure. I don't think. I think this is just showing the, the kind of construction of the inertial planes,
Okay.
as he calls them, the inner 3 inertial planes versus the outer.
Cube wave field boundaries.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we've got a question. Let's go ahead and bring up the question. Rita Rankin asked the question. So, what does each cubic wave field represent? A thought, a creation, or
Each,
both?
each right, each cubic wave field represents an action of motion of light. So it can be, as Russell describes, everything is made out of this one substance of light. So we could be talking about anything. We could be talking about a person. We could be talking about a planet or a sun. But the idea is that it starts in the mind as an idea and then is projected. And so what we're seeing, this moving light that we're seeing, is just a representation of the idea that was formed in the mind. So it's an illusion that's just trying to represent the idea. And so that illusion of moving light is, sometimes he called it an event. But it's essentially light that is moving in order to create this illusion that represents the idea that is in the mind. So the idea is different from, like if you're a carpenter, you have an idea that you want to create a rocking chair. Well, the rocking chair that you finally build out of wood or whatever, that is not the same thing as the idea. That is a representation of the idea that was in your mind of a rocking chair. And so that representation is the light that has been set in motion. So it's a piece of matter, or a piece of mass. So every mass or piece of matter has its own cubic wave field. So I hope that explains it. It's just everything has its cubic wave field. It's a way that Russell kind of chops up the universe to kind of describe
every
it
element,
to us.
right, Scott? Every element is within its own cubic wave field, and that's why we go back to that final image as we get close to wrapping up here. I'd like to go to image number 57 first, Scott, and you could maybe talk us through this a little bit if you would. And
Sure.
on 786, if you have your course there, it comes into talking about it there, right at the top.
Hey, Ken, there was another question down there that flashed up that you didn't touch on.
Okay. Deb Tonkin, how do these scientific principles behind the cube and the sphere influence everyday objects or environments, and how can we use this understanding to improve our daily lives? That's a great question there, Deb.
That's a great question. I can try to take that if you guys like. So the scientific principles behind the cube and the sphere. So how do they influence everyday objects? Well, every object, or say every 2 objects. In between those 2 objects, there is a boundary, a plane of 0 curvature, and every single object is radiating and gravitating, I guess you will. It's at some point it's either expanding or it's contracting. Most of the things that we see are expanding because they already contracted, they came into form, and now they're radiating back. They were born, so to speak, and they grew up and now they're radiating back to death. But so we can kind of learn these principles and understand, like, I don't know, it's kind of the same thing that you would say, like, how does, like, the understanding that when traditional science first said, oh, hey, things are made of atoms, well, how does that influence everyday life or everyday objects? I don't know. You might not really see, you can't see the atoms or whatever, you can't really see these things. It's more knowing how things work that you could then kind of use that knowledge. Let's see. You say, how do these scientific principles behind the cube and sphere influence everyday objects or environments? And how can we use this understanding to improve our daily lives? Well, we can definitely use this understanding to improve our daily lives. I mean, this is very big concept. This is a theory of everything, of physics. And so we, as human beings, as we learn this very well, people will be able to, some scientists who learn this should be able to use this knowledge to help our environment, creating cleaner power, cleaner energy, that will help our environment. It's kind of big stuff. I don't know how knowing this would really help. Like,
can I take a run at it,
an
Scott?
everyday person. What's that?
Can I take a run at it real quick?
Yes, please do. Yeah.
I said it before. I kind of said earlier. I think of myself as a centering sphere, right? I'm the sphere, and the cube is my wave boundary field. You could call that your countenance. And within that cube, every thought, feeling, and action surrounds that, is within that cube that you are living in, the cube wave boundary field. And we call that your countenance, the spirit within. And that centering sun is inside you. So the way every day works is, remember, your thoughts and your feelings and actions are the sum total of who you are. And where would they be stored? But in that cubic wave boundary field. So the way that I correlate this is to realize that what I do is going to affect me and be with me the rest of my life. And so my actions, if they're good and they're loving, I'm going to have a balanced cube field. And my wave boundary in that field is going to be balanced. Like, as I said, science has proven that we have 70,000 thoughts a day. And you go back to that it's all in your cube wave boundary field. So if you're having a bad day and you're thinking of all the headaches and all the stress and all the anguish in your life, that's all surrounding that centering sun that represents your soul. So it's with you. And so the way that you can see it is to realize that you can say and think whatever you want about somebody else, but that is mirroring right back to you and coming. And as you're mirroring it back out to the universe, everything is intercommunicating to everything else at the speed of 186,000 miles per second. And it's not just one way, it's also coming to you and going out. So you can't hide, right? You have negative, dark thoughts. It radiates. You can feel like you're just kind of like a negative, dark person. That's your wave boundary field. And your centering sun, to me, would be that God divine light, and tapping into that divine light and radiating from that divine light. Yes, Mr. Bonzo, are you cleaning your lens, or you got your finger up? Or
I got my finger up.
I thought you were doing this and told me I was stinking up the place, man. Go ahead. What you got?
No, not yet. You're doing a good job, Ken.
Okay.
No, I wanted to, in regard to this question, there's some scientific principles here. For example, you know how we were playing, building our own box, Ken, with the mirrors, the 6 mirror cubes. Sure. And when you look in there, you can see what is called the infinity effect. Mm. So when Deb is asking, how does this affect our everyday lives, is that you know that all motion is curved. So a thought that begins with you, an action that begins with you, will reflect out into the universe, and it will end with you. So when we say to people, what goes around comes around. I mean, how simple is that saying?
There you
but
go.
If you take these principles that we're studying this evening, you can see how that is a scientific truth. So when people incorporate this and they understand this in their everyday thinking and in their lives, be careful what you think, because
you also want to keep in mind that you're simply talking. Are you a victim of circumstance, thoughts, and actions that are manifesting around you? Or do you take control, understanding that idea at its purest state is infinite capacity to do and to manifest that which you want. So by holding on to the idea to manifest the joy, the peace, the love, the abundance that you want in your life, and not letting yourself be distracted by outer embodied influences of other people's thoughts and actions, you go from victim of life to director of your own life.
Good
Okay,
point.
That's a great, yeah. Now, so yes, that is a great answer. And Ken, you kind of started this, and now I do have a comment to say. So in terms of like the science of it, Walter described how, every action is not only is it repeated everywhere, but yes, it starts at the inertial plane, it goes to maximum growth, then it comes back to the inertial plane, and then it is recorded in the inertial plane to then be repeated again. And so he talks about how,
Endless.
any action, that's going to be essentially recorded on your soul. So it's going to be with you forever. So in this case, this is definitely how we can use these cube sphere principles in our lives, is knowing that our actions are, once you set them into motion, there's two things. Number one, it's going to be recorded on your soul. And number two, once you set it into motion, it never stops. It keeps going, and it is spread out to everyone else. So, and it comes back to you, and it is repeated. No action that ever begins ever stops. So it is an infinite universe. So definitely knowing this concept, you can have better, peaceful thoughts, thoughts of joy, thoughts of peace, thoughts of love, and you can send that out to the universe, and it will be multiplied back to you, and it will never stop. It will just only grow. So, and it will stay with you. So that's
and
kind of
you're literally changing frequency.
Don't mind, Jim. Just jump on in. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
it's all right.
Well, you're literally changing your frequency, your thought frequency. When you change your thought frequency and become a living example of love, what happens is you step out of the return of those negative thoughts that you had. You've gone to a different plane of thought and frequency, and they have very little to no effect on you any longer.
Now, you lost me with the, and then
frequency. That's the wave.
Ah. And guys, we're talking about mirror cube wave boundary field. So Scott was saying that. You guys are saying it. It's mirrored right back to you. I like what John says.
Yes,
Think about it. Whatever you do is going to go out there, and then it's coming right back to you, and it's going to stay with you. Like that's.
If you step out of
I didn't mean to start talking.
If you step away from that negating thought,
will resonate.
And go to one of your resonance is good. You're changing your residency in the universe. So those things, those thoughts and those patterns that were created are, yes, still out there, and they're still being repeated, but they're no longer having the same effect on you that they would before you let go of them and stop being a victim of them. Now, other people's thoughts and actions and decisions definitely continue to have an effect on your life, but not as much. And when you do get hit by the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, when they hit you and they come home, you have a whole different approach to how to respond to them. And it's not with negativity or hatred or anger. It's with love and acceptance, and we can get through this.
Scott, you had something, or I heard you were gonna say something?
And I apologize.
No, you're good. I literally meant that. I like that you came in. That was fine. Scott, you there? Okay. So that was really good. We're going to wrap this up here, but that was really good at the end there. Yeah, Scott's frozen again. So we will very much appreciate Scott coming on in here and giving it his best shot. And everybody.
More power.
Yes. Hey.
Oh.
Hey, back. All right. Uh-oh.
No.
It gets better, Scott.
Yeah. But back to Deb's question is that it was a great answer, right? We're wrapping this up, and we go into science, and then you can see how the everyday life principle is that what I think and what I feel and the actions I take are eternal. And not only eternal, as Scott said, they repeat themselves for eternity, right? They're recorded, you send them out, they're recorded back in you, and then they repeat themselves eternally inside you. And that's why, you know, in life, you see someone that's downtrodden and not very happy, you can figure they're probably not having a lot of good thoughts, and they're probably not taking a lot of good actions. And then you see those that are kind and loving, and they got a good energy, and they're jovial, and you feel compelled to them. You know, you say, I like you. And you realize that in their life, they've been carrying good thoughts and radiating those thoughts, you know. And that was a beautiful way to summarize. I appreciate you guys breaking that down. And I think that was just a great way to end this real difficult podcast. As we know, we get into these lessons and you get deeper into the science, and it can get a little tricky. So that was a great way to bring us back into what's the practical application for this for our lives and bring it to a human experience. So I hope that answered your question, and that was you know, that represented something to you that you can take from this podcast and go forward, realizing like, okay, I live in a boundary field, and I am that sphere, and that's God. As Scott said, that's God. That's God. You are God, centering God. Mr. Bonzo has his finger up.
I wanted to add kind of a philosophical statement to this science stuff. You know, there is no escape. All right. So whatever Jim was talking about frequency earlier. So whatever you generate, whatever you create, whatever thought it is, all right, there's no escaping it. If it's good, you'll benefit from it. If it's negative, well, it's going to impact you in that regard. So when you see things in the world on a practical everyday basis, and you see things that you think are not good, right? Whatever label you want to put on them, nobody can get away with anything. Right? So just remember, we talked about this. There's your timing, there's my timing, and then there's God's timing. All right. And so just try to take some comfort in that, you know, nobody's going to get away with anything. You know, their time is coming, but it goes both ways. So you give out love, you get love, you give out hatred, anger, meanness, and so on. And then that's all you're going to get back. So, and here's a beautiful statement, Ken, that we can end with on Leo's part. You can only have that in life which you first give.
Beautiful. That is beautiful. That's it. And then we will wrap up on that. I want to thank everybody for coming. Do we got any? Here's our future look into April, and we will be on lesson 41 next week, which will be the purpose of the cube in nature. So this, especially guys, for those listening, when we get to 12, it's a wonderful lesson, a unit about love. So it's going to really, it doesn't get more technical. This is about as technical as it's going to get. And we're you know, a quarter of the way through this technical aspect of this. So hang in there, and we will. And thank you for everyone. We'll always want to bring it back to that human side of, well, how does this benefit me knowing this today? Deb, that was a great question and a great way to think. It was like, that's the takeaway. So that was wonderful, John. Thank you very much for ending that. And we got now Wednesday, I think okay, so the purpose of the cube. And then Wednesday we have Karen Elkins coming up, who is going to be talking about echoes of water. And she's putting all that stuff together. And she wasn't here tonight because of an injury, but she will be there Wednesday and prepared. So it would be great to have you. We'd love to see you there. It'll be Wednesday night at 7 p.m., same time, same bat channel. And we'll be here, and she will be sharing her stuff as we do that. And so if you guys want to show up, it'd be great to see it and the support. We appreciate that. And is there anything else I need to cover there, James?
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, let's thank Scott for
hanging in there.
Man, there you go, John, right? That's a Russell student. You never quit, baby. You keep coming, man. And you kept coming, man. And that may be the greatest takeaway, and that is the truth. We're going to go through hurdles, but you keep coming. At the end of the day, remember, you're in a universe of love, and love will return to you, as John said, as you give it. And that is what we're all seeking. We really are. We're all seeking love, and the best way is to give it, and you will guarantee to be re-given it, as it is a mirrored universe, and that's what science can tell us. Okay. Don't. Oh yeah, and then if we're here, we're self-supporting through our own contributions, guys. So if you can donate, we've been getting some really nice donations from people. We got a super chat there. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/awakening your inner genius. And please, if you can support and help out. If you can't, that's okay. We're glad you're here. But if you can and you can donate something, that'd be really great. We are on a shoestring budget, as I love the term, because it's truth. When you are carrying a message and doing nonprofit work, it costs money to do this. So any help would be appreciated. We hope you guys are getting something out of this. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. And we will try and go forward in the science, which is really, at the end of the day, if you just give it a chance, I think there'll come a point where you'll be really grateful and glad that you learned this, and you'll see how it'll apply in every area of your life. Okay. Thank you guys for coming on. Well, thanks Scott for showing up, and can't wait to have my girl be back next week. So that'll definitely make sure the podcast will go a little smoother. Not just kidding. So you get the feminine touch. So we got a little male touch tonight. And but as Jim says, every man's trying to become a woman, and Jim can validate that. I think, right, Jim?
He's living proof, kid.
All right, we're going to end on that joke. God bless you all. We love you, and have a great night. We'll see you soon.
All right,
Thank you, guys.
See you.